Well, hello, my loves. Good morning. Hi. Ripa. Mm-hmm. How are we? Feeling a little like freshy today, really like zhuzhed. And I think that may have something to do with the consistent creative groove that we've been showing up for. And, there's been so much that in the best way, like, I don't mean this in a heavy way at all, but like so much has come up with like revisiting the way that I've gone on video and I've had all the energy for it. And when I've like kind of stepped back or where I've had resistance, and I'm like, you know what, lids off, man. Like totally, like I'm all good. I can see very clearly all the aspects and like all the areas in which I may have shied away from previously, or where I was holding back, or where I wasn't fully embracing the cringe and the full spectrum, and like, yes, it's so cool to be able to have a repertoire of seeing like where this like came from through like videos on YouTube. Like I zhuzhed up the covers. You may have noticed. My friend Emily Johnson helped me with that. Thank you, my buttle. She knows me so well. And just like everything I've learned, basically, even when I had like very advanced cataracts and couldn't see shit, is from Emily. She's amazing. So we did the podcast cover and understood like the cohesion and like how it's all going to flow and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. If we can all feel empowered for it to be more fun to show up and do our work, like, wouldn't we all be doing it? But it's like we may get tripped up or distracted by something, or think that our problem is unsolvable, or like, or it's silly, or we don't want to, I don't know, like, but it can just be unmasked and then game on. So I'm feeling really good this morning, and I've got a couple of hot topics that I want to share with you. And yesterday was the new moon in Sag, which was the first time I like busted out pencil crayons in a while. I've got to say, I actually shared that with a client. I was like, I can see coloring. Like, let's get you moving with colors on a page. And then I was like, oh, okay, like that. I'm also going to take that on board because that feels really good. And I actually drew out, and this is a really cool thing too, is that I've started to think in Spanish. Ooh, so good. So yeah, there's some Spanish words there, and I could feel the influence, and I was just kind of I was like, okay, the intention for this page is to be like, what is my reality? And so there's lots of colors and spirals and flowers and things like that. Do mistake. So yes, so the first thing after the new moon, Sag is so like, for me it's super fun. After I am a Scorpio, and like after the Scorpio season, and especially with eclipse and everything that went down, I was like, oh my God, bring on the reprieve of expansion and joy. Like, let's all just lighten the fuck up. So that feels good. And I was thinking about how potentially how we subconsciously or consciously have at a certain point decided that joy and hard work are separate. We're just like, oh no, those can't actually blend and like be a perfect synergistic masterpiece. But who said that? So it's like when you're really like making steady strides and showing up and like deciding that your long-term vision is in fact sustainable, it is actually choosing you as well, and that you're going to go forward with it, and you're implementing those consistencies, whatever it is, and like having really supportive structures and parameters in place for you to do the damn thing. And then it's like, have I included joy into that equation? Like, is that actually a top value for me. So like, can I know that I'm doing really well and I'm actually working on the thing that I'm meant to when I'm like the happiest? Or the happiest, but then that happiness is really sustained throughout. So you're not actually losing energy, but that you're able to maintain it and feel, fresh on the other side of it and not be like, oh, good night now. So like, just to kind of give an example there have been times where I was doing the morning videos and they would, as much like as it is the main thing, I also, it took so much for me to do, so much energy. And so there was a misalignment there. And that misalignment was that I wasn't valuing my worth and I also wasn't getting paid. Not just videos. I was like, I had an expectation. And here's something that I probably couldn't face at the time, but I did have an external expectation. And it wasn't happening because, of course, anytime we're like putting so much pressure and having the expectation in the first place, it's like, nah, I'm not going to come through with that. You're not giving me any space, and also like, what the heck? Like, you're diminishing your actual value and you're just, yes, there is something that can happen, which is a value, and then it gets convoluted, gets switched up, and it can actually become like a poison to ingest. So it's like too much of anything is too much, right? So one of my values is radical generosity, but at what cost? When it's a cost to oneself and one's energy, and they're not having open spaces for there to be reciprocity, then there's a problemo, right? And that's exactly what was happening. I am back. I have no idea where I am. Had to pause. The gas guy came. Means the dogs go off. That's how it works. So all good. I'm just going to dive in now to the next thing that I want to share that I've been literally thinking about, and it's been bringing me so much joy. The simplicity of it. I love how simplicity can hit so deep because it's so true. And this was something a client and a dear friend shared with me the other day. And basically, like, you can identify yourself in one of three places during any kind of relationship, whether it be your career, romantic, otherwise, it's like you're doing one of the three P's. So stay with me. This shit is hot. Number one, you're persisting. You're making progress. That's an added one from me. So you're in a phase where you're moving along, you're going, you're showing up, you're putting effort in, you're making progress, you're doing the thing. So that's where you're at. The next P. So things aren't working, it's not happening. Guess what? Time for a pivot. Okay. So pivoting can take, I don't know what we have an idea of pivot, because your idea may be very different than mine, but it's like making a transition. I feel like currently in my career, I'm pivoting. So, but in that pivot, I'm also persisting and making progress in a new way. So I've got a little bit of both going on, but I would say the pivot is the main thing. And then the third P that you could be engaging in, or that you ought to be, is pulling the plug. That's an end. Know when it's done. Journey's over, relationship has come to a completion, it's time to move on. So you got to pull the plug on that specific, whatever it is. So those are the three P's that I'm really jiving with. So like, where are you out of the P's right now? What part are you in? What's taking up your energy, and what's maybe being asked, but you're like, oh, no, I'm still persisting. It's like, what if that persist was better served as a pivot instead? So there you go. Next thing, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we're both, this at the beginning of the year, we were walking down the Malecon in La Paz, and we both were talking about significant life changes and that they happen. We're like, oh my God, they happen, but we had both kind of been in our spots for a while, but we both felt like a significant significant life change coming. And we put a time frame of 6 to 12 months on it. My change happened at the 6 month, actually a little bit earlier, and his now has come through at the 12-month almost, because it's, because it'll anyway. So like 11 months. So we were right with the timeline, and we're like, holy shish kebab, life can look and feel a certain way one day, and then the next it's a higher new reality. And obviously that didn't happen overnight, but the energy was moving towards that, and things were kind of being in place as they needed to be, so to get you at that point, and so not spending, we do end up spending quite a bit of time at the edge or overstay a lot. It's like, to avoid that significant life change, we'll do a lot of dancing around to see about persisting, right, when we ought to be pivoting or literally just pulling the plug. So I was talking, one of the first things I said to him was that I feel like I've got a blank canvas in front of me, like having had just completed my personal portal, what felt like a 7-year cycle. No stone was left unturned. I felt like everything was well addressed. There was no residue or anything kind of left over that was nagging or pulling, not a single thread. So I was like, whoa, I've just got this brand new canvas in front of me, and I'm currently choosing the palette. So I'm being very selective, very intentional, without entering the overly cautious territory, because that would indicate that there was some kind of reason that I had a fear from my past experience, right? So I'm like, oh no, like, we're Gucci here. We're making art, we're creating, we're like having a whole new masterpiece in front of us. But those first initial blots of paint on that canvas, it's like they're the most noticeable things, right? It's like, duh, like you got all this white space, and then it's like so obvious, but then at the end, right, so it's like all the middle, the mess and the layers and everything, and it ends up being like, you look at a painting, so many times I think this, I look at a painting, I go, what was their first stroke? Where did they start? What color did they choose? So I'm like now investigating myself with this canvas, and I'm like, what colors are you going to choose? Are you going to start with a spiral or a straight line or what? So everything seems like hyper present is how I would explain that, and not being like, I'm not afraid. And like, that's very cool to acknowledge. Like, I know that the big changes are right here. And there's like no element of fear. And another thing that's kind of neat is that this whole year, well, kind of like end of Feb to probably the end of summer there, was really like cringe focused. In fact, the clients that I work with have enrolled in my like cringe clinics, so that's been like a real focus for me. But it's like, the question then is, what's beyond the cringe? So you're committed and you're consistent with the cringe, and then what? Then you enter this realm of like expression and going, hey, I'm imperfect and weird, how about you? And it becomes this new like playful curiosity thing, and you're just like doing it. It's no longer a thing that makes your whole like body go, whoa, 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 like that was really different. It's like, no, like that's just a part of what's happening in my life right now. And you just go, yeah, you with it. And you start like bonding over your weird and over the way that you actually wanted to be doing things this whole time, especially over these last couple weirds is what I was going to say, which is totally accurate for weird years. I just feel like a lot of people are wanting to really burst the fuck out of their shell right now and say, yeah, I guess I can see how I wanted to like put a label on that, or just like really hone in on this, but I'm just like bored of that now. And what I really want is this. So now I feel like we've got this opportunity to play in the, what do you really want? Are you gonna like go ahead and allow yourself to be that? Like, and can we like be friends about that? Oh my God. Like there's no like hard feelings or weirdness in something that I don't vibe with. Clearly, look at the body language, is when you were like, are you playing small? Like no one's playing small on purpose. People are dealing with shit and they're doing their fucking best at any given point. You know, like no one would be like, oh, I'm opting to play small actually. Oh, I'm like really cool with being on the sidelines of my own life. Or like, no, I'm just like hiding in someone else's shadow. No. And like at any given point, the hope is that we're doing the best with what we've got, you know, and then when it's and then again you come across the 3 Ps. Let's call it, what are we going to call it? It's like the intersection. It's like so you're going to persist with the like, oh, once you've identified that like maybe you were not actually sharing the full spectrum, then you're like, am I going to keep doing that? This is really uncomfortable. So I'm like, I probably not. What? Okay, what are my options? Pivot. Oh, okay. Let's see about staying in that same realm, but doing it differently, or kind of showcasing, piecing it together a little. Or I'm going to pull the plug on that shit. Up to you. Always choices, you know? And what else? Oh, so with this right now, having recently been through the personal portal and whatever else, you know, it's interesting because you're kind of like, who am I now? I'm always asking that question every day. And I go, who? So the parts of me like that I really liked from before, like, are they going to come too? I don't want to miss them. And here's the thing. Number one, you're never going to miss what's meant for you, period. And you're never going to have to miss the best parts of you. So no matter what kind of death and rebirth cycle, no matter how many evolutions you go through, you can always bring with you the best of you. And those parts are going to show up no matter what, because they got you. They are solid, they are essential, and they are true. Yes. So don't worry about that. Okay. Just put that worry right. Just say, no, thanks. I appreciate, but we good. I was going to say Gucci again. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to say Gucci twice, but now I have. So that's it, my loves. Thanks for being here. I love you so much. Do me a solid, share the good word if you're enjoying. Give it a share. If you prefer on audio, it's available on all podcast platforms as well. And let's keep it going. Yeah. Love ya.